Looks like we are. I think so. I'm doing well, Tony. Thanks for the invite, man. Pleasure to be here. Hey, no worries, man. Hmm. No, not at all. No, not at all. So yeah, I mean, I didn't start doing this channel until early last year. So it's been about a year, and I'd say about 7 months since I've started the channel. Before that, I'm still am an actor, a working actor here in Los Angeles. Actually, after this, I've got to put an audition on tape. Um, but yeah, I mean, I studied acting in New York City and moved out to Los Angeles and been sort of working in the industry for about 20 years and yeah. I do comedic acting mostly, but I've done film, television, stage, commercials, you name it. I've pretty much done it. Uh, no, not online. I mean, they people have done that like in person, where they're like, "Oh, you do improv comedy? We'll say something funny." And it's just like doesn't really work that way, but okay. Hmm.
Yeah, since I am such a pro, my audio wasn't turned on. You say something.
Yeah.
there
Check,
we,
check. 1, 2.
there we go. No, your audio was on.
Awesome.
But for the sake of me, I was testing my mic earlier. Now everybody
Mhm.
gets to see my new production skills. But I was just asking Lou. Of course, people heard it. I was asking you about your background,
Mhm.
and I'm always interested. I'm kind of like a people person. Like,
Yeah.
I want. I'm more interested in people, what their history is, and kind of what, because it kind of gives you an idea of what their, not their motives. I don't mean to say like I'm trying to be sneaky or anything. I just
Mhm.
mean it kind of gets to the heart of where people, like me. I've been in construction all my life, right? Because
Right.
I planned it since I was a kid, right? And so that kind of tells people who I am. So
Right.
I had some experiences when I was younger that changed me, and I've always been interested. And I'm an old timer, so we still say UFOs.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if I'll ever change to UAP.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll
You don't have
try.
to.
I try when I'm in the right, when I'm in that crowd,
Mhm.
or when I'm in the hipster UFO crowd. And
It's not even so much a hipster thing. It's really the only time I ever really use it. I mean, I use it on my show just because we're trying to attract, senators and congressmen, and they know the acronym UAP. It's the acronym that makes them most comfortable to talk about it, because the acronym UFO is just so loaded with stigma. So it's tough to if that like if, that's why I didn't put the word UFO or the acronym UFO in the title of my name or my show, because I didn't want to be like ostracized or denied because people thought that my show was going to be weird because it's got the acronym UFO. So
isn't that
I mean,
funny? I always hear this. I've mentioned it several times over the years about my experiences, and people have just given me, like, even today when I go into these hangouts, I'm in
mhm,
several different communities on YouTube, so I'll visit these different shows and things, and they'll be like, "Hey, how's the UFOs today?" And I'm like, "Okay, you know what I mean? It's kind of a real thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't that hard to keep. It wasn't that hard to get people to be quiet, right?
right,
I don't think. I mean, because I've experienced this myself, where if people just basically think you're nutty, you know.
yeah,
And now I'm 58 now. and now I'm getting a little bit less concerned about what people think about me. But it's still, just last week, I mentioned to the guys, "Oh, I'm interviewing, Luis Jimenez." Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Jimenez, but that's fine. That
I'm
works.
sorry. He meant that's right.
Don't be sorry.
Jace.
It's fine.
And Lue Elizondon, and I'm mentioning these guys, and they're like, "Oh, it's UFO stuff, huh?" You know what I mean? There's always that little snide laugh,
Trust me, I definitely know what you mean. I mean, I'm in Hollywood. I'm trying to attract studios to hire me for parts. This doesn't help my career. It doesn't, it's not doing me any favors other than helping me provide a roof over my head, partly because of it, and then the other parts I'm driving an Uber or working at a restaurant or acting.
I imagine it would be hard too, because the cost of living is pretty high out there, right?
Very high, very, very high. Although I've gotten lucky, I've found a pretty decently cheap apartment that's not in a terrible neighborhood. That's that's reasonable on the pocketbook, especially when you have a girlfriend to split the rent with. So it's, if I was by myself, it would be a lot more difficult. That is for sure.
I did some work. I worked for an architecture firm for 5 years before I started my construction company. And right after the earthquake, what was it, 91 or 92 in San Francisco? We went out. The architecture firm that I worked for, we were doing a data center for Williams-Sonoma, the magazine people, and it was in the Bay there. And I was talking to some of the waiters at lunch, and they were telling me they had these, 400 square foot flats or whatever they call them. They were like $1,500 a month. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I have a whole house for less than that.
Yeah. Well, trust me, it's something my lady and I have been talking about, especially now I don't have to really be here anymore. Some of these studios are requiring people live in Los Angeles, but it's pretty rare now. And all of my auditions have been, self-tape auditions that I send into my agent. I don't go into an audition room anymore. You would just part of the system.
You would just be there for a part that you had to have, if you got.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only reason I'm really in Los Angeles is because you have to be here to work in film. This is where all the casting directors are. This is where all the work happens. And this is where used to be all the auditions used to be held. But now that going in for an audition isn't a thing anymore. It's all self-tape. It's all online now. You just tape yourself and you submit it. And so if you get hired, I could fly in from anywhere I want and work for the 3 or 4 days I'm here, get a hotel, and then fly back home.
What type of acting is it mainly that you do? Like movies?
Television. I've done a lot of television. Just small parts here and there on network TV.
That's awesome. I know a movie star.
Yeah. Not really. Well, that's why the name of the show is called The Unidentified Celebrity Review.
I thought you were talking about other people.
I'm very much unidentified. Nobody knows who the hell I am.
So we have Vanessa Kitty and out there. I know her, and there's Night Strike. Night Strike is the guy who helped me set up this server, and he's
right on.
Cool IT guy. And there's Richard Maunder. He's from the UK. I've met him personally. He's been to the States. They're all good friends, and I was hoping some of your friends would join too.
Yeah, what I could do is I can, because I didn't have the link to the show.
Let me put it in the.
Put it in
where
the description there.
Now I'm going to show my noobness again. Where's the link? The YouTube. I remember where it was when in the settings.
Yeah, I think you have to go to the actual YouTube. Well, because I use StreamYard, so I have no idea where it is in this system.
Hey, Richard, can you put the link in the chat and I'll copy it?
There you go. Here you go. Here, I got it here. I don't think I can put it in there, though.
Oh, you can put it in our. We got our little internal chat here down here at the bottom.
All right, there we go. Oh, we have a. Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I see it. There you go.
See, we got something of technology. We have some resemblance. Let's see if I can copy it without, there we go, without going to it. See not strike? I'm going to make him feel guilty for not helping me produce the show. He has a couple of things that he does. He has a couple of weekly shows. There you go. That's the YouTube side. Let's see. Actually,
Tony, do you have a Twitter?
I do. It's ArtisanTony. All my social media is just the same. ArtisanTony. And I think I'm following you. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I thought I had you in here. ArtisanTony. There you are.
I will ask the people in the audience if they have any questions for Lue. If you're just not getting here, I met Lue through the Unidentified. Hold on, I'm having a little a little attack. I got this little kick in my little scratchy thing in my throat that's making my eyes water. Holy cow! No. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's why I always have water.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. So what I wanted to do was, well, first of all, how did you get? Were you like me, where you're just your whole life you've like been interested in UAP, UFO, or how did you get interested? Like, how did you get to where you are now with the subject, the genre?
It's a funny story. So, I mean, yeah, since I was a kid, I can remember just going to the library, and usually the first books, the section I would gravitate toward would be, Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, ghost story kind of things. And those would always be the books I would read, other than like fantasy books. And then flash forward to when I was 13 years old, I had a sighting at a birthday party with a whole bunch of people and adults there too. And it was pretty incredible. Even the adults were, when the adults in the room are like, what the hell is that thing? That's when I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is unique.
And where was that?
That was in Florida. I grew up in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was, suburb of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it was around nighttime and
adjacent to the Bermuda Triangle.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. And so, yeah, from there, I that sort of solidified my interest in the topic, and I'd always had a arm's length sort of interest in it. In other words, like I would always look into it, or if I heard something new, if there was a new movie, I would watch it, but it didn't, take up my entire existence. When I was in middle school and high school, I was, playing sports and just being a high school kid. And then I graduated high school, moved to New York City to study acting, and every once in a while, you go to a party and you go out with some friends and it's 3 a.m. and people start talking about UFOs. I'd be like, oh yeah, I know a little bit about that stuff. Flash forward to 2017 when Lue Elizondon came out publicly with Christopher Mellon and Tom DeLonge, To the Stars, and revealed the footage and the New York Times article with Leslie Kane, and that was like my reintroduction to this topic again, where I was like, oh wow, this is different. I've never seen our military actually confirm that these things are real. That's a new development in this topic. And so It was like 2019, late like November, December 2019, and I was working at a restaurant in Los Angeles, and in comes Lue Elizondo, with his production team from the TV show Unidentified, and so we sat down and he talked to me for 2-3 hours. It was a great conversation. Gave me his phone number, and he was like, "Hey, if you're ever down in San Diego, come give me a visit." I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And then shortly after that, I mean, right before that, I was thinking about starting a podcast or a YouTube show, and I was debating on what the topic was going to be, because I have a couple interests. Obviously, acting. I love video games and film, so I was thinking about doing a video game film review channel. I was thinking about doing an acting podcast. I was thinking about doing a political podcast because I do love politics. I'm pretty passionate about politics. And then Lue Elizondo walked in the restaurant. I was like, maybe I should do a podcast about UFOs. And the idea originally was to review documentaries and films and TV shows that were focused around the topic of UFOs, and do a review on those shows and give my opinions and my reviews of films and stuff. And so that's how that's how it started. And,
how long ago was that?
That was I started the channel in, I think, February or March, I believe, of 2020. Yeah.
I'll show you something interesting.
Shortly after I met him.
I'll show you something interesting about me.
Yeah.
This is Sequoia Nuclear Plant right here. Yeah, and I grew up just over here.
Wow.
In this area. Where's my... And we used to go camp backpacking, or not backpacking. It felt like it when I was a kid or a teenager. Yeah. There's a little place called Pinky's Point right here. Okay, and this used to be kind of abandoned. I think that's it. It's a point, and you can see wherever it is. Yep. There we go. MSI audio or video. NVIDIA card, but anyway, you gave me a flashback whenever you start talking about when you were younger, and so we used to go there and camp on that little knoll, that little point, and we would see things above the nuclear plant. We'd see, we would sit there and daydream, or not daydream. It was night. We were camping. That we would imagine the things we were seeing were UFOs, right? And we would blast the Beatles' White Album on our 8 tracks, while we were sitting there. And I had other experiences that were more shocking, and I don't want to go too much into my stuff, but I grew up in the church, right? From my mother basically worked 2 jobs to support us, so we were in church a lot. The church was kind of like where we stayed when, we'd go to vacation Bible school and all this stuff, summer camps, all this stuff. And when I had my few experiences, it kind of shook me up a little bit. It kind of made me question everything. And ever since then, it's been, I don't know, I'm not gonna claim I have PTSDs or anything, but there's not a night that goes by that I don't have some issue,
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to go. You just made me have a flashback to that time. And
now I'm curious.
Well, whenever like those instances that we would see things there, I never knew. That's when I was younger. We didn't know. We didn't have the internet. We didn't know that UFOs were. And I know they weren't hanging out over power plants. It was more, missile silos. Or
no, I mean there are a lot of stories of these things hanging out over all sorts of nuclear facilities, including nuclear power plants. So that's nothing new. And
it's tough there because they had a couple of security scares back in those days, and there would be helicopters flying around, and so it was easy. UFOs had an easy time blending in. We have an airport here, You know, Chattanooga.
Yeah.
I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have a, you know, we're like a hub. We're like a little, oh, what would you call it? We're an outpost for the Atlanta airport.
Yeah.
You know, people come here to take shuttle flights there. You know, because our parking is a lot easier. It's just easier sometimes to come here and take a shuttle to Atlanta. You know, and so there's lots of things going on around, you know, in the air, and we also have a lot of military stuff going on in the air. So, you know, when we were younger, it was no big deal. You know, at first we didn't have the experience of having this influence of looking for things, right? Right, because now I just go around looking up all the time. And back then we just looked up because we were laying on the ground on our backpacks because we were camping out. But anyway, I didn't want this to be about me. I want it to be about you. So I am interested in. Do you think that the UAPs are actually? Do you think they're extraterrestrial, or do you think they are our technology?
I don't know. That's the thing. I could say it's probably both. You know, I think a lot of these stories are our technology, and then we, you know, I think that there's a diamond in the rough element to these things. The thing with my sighting is I didn't see any entities with my sighting. I just saw the craft. So I don't know who was operating it. I have no clue. I mean, I have ideas, you know, could it be extraterrestrial? Sure. Could it be ultra terrestrial? Sure. I do think it was non-human, but what it is past that, I can't begin to give people answers because there's nobody. I don't think anybody knows.
Well, you know what's funny about this little genre on the internet on YouTube is that people worry too much about what they say. I think, right?
Oh, definitely.
We don't have to prove. I mean, we all have our experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I say I think they're, you know, extra dimensional or you know. You know, from another planet. I mean, look, I just read an article just 2 or 3 days ago where what's the planet that we just picked out that was a perfect exoplanet? I mean,
oh yeah, no, there's,
you know, I mean,
yeah,
and it's only 4 light years away or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty close.
Yeah,
but I think we're so worried that somebody's going to cross-examine what we say. You know,
right.
That, but I do agree that I think that it's both. I think the technology that we have came from our experiences, and this is why I'm kind of skeptical of this. Because one of the things I researched was, you know, how many times have congressional hearings been called for, right? So I found, you know, I only started doing this a couple of days ago, so. You know, I went and researched when Gerald Ford called for congressional hearings in 1966, and I kind of assumed that at some point I was going to find, like every 10 or 20 years, I was going to find. I guess it's only been, you know, 40 or 50, but I thought I was going to find a pattern of where, and I still haven't finished this, but I thought I was going to find a pattern of where the public finds out something, they get excited, there's congressional hearings called for, the Congress says, yeah, we have hearings, and people it kind of subsides, and we go through a reset, you know,
right.
where people are just waiting or they go on with their daily lives. But I don't think, so there's kind of this thing where, and I like Lue, he's actually one of my favorite people right now. I don't even know him. I hope to get to know him a little better. But
yeah.
There's kind of this thing where people are trying to convince me, I feel like they're trying to convince me that our government doesn't really know anything. And I think that's not true. I don't think that's true.
I think that's a fair statement. But I also think it's true. And let me explain. Like, I think it's obvious, right, that our military has more information and more data. I think they have more videos. I think they have more listening devices that have maybe even caught these sounds that these things make, or have measured them in different ways, in different spectrums of light. I think that stuff is out there. What I have a hard time believing is, and I could be wrong on this, is that we have alien bodies or a craft. There's just no. I haven't seen any smoking gun proof to tell me. There's a lot of government paperwork. There's a lot of paper trails. There's a lot of people with credible credentials saying that there is, but there's no piece of a ship that has been analyzed and talked about on a public level. And until that happens, it's even if you did have a piece of a ship, even if you did have an alien, let's say a body of some kind, you don't know where they came from. You have no idea, because you can't follow this entity back to where it came from. So, did it slip a dimension? Did it come from within our own planets? A lot of people, think that, the ocean's a mighty big place and it could hide a lot of this stuff that's going on, and they might have been there since the beginning.
Well, I do believe that also. I believe that when I ask you about them being extraterrestrial, I meant thousands and thousands of years ago, know. But there's Chris Lato up there.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
And
there you go.
Chris is a super nice guy. Have you had a chance to talk? You've had a chance to talk with Chris.
I have, yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's if this wasn't your interview, I'd say, hey, Chris, jump in. But I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, he's a cool dude.
That would be rude.
Cool dude. He was on our show last week, so he's a good guy.
But I guess, how can? I guess you have to ask I have to ask the question.
Yeah.
How can it be that they don't? Okay, I understand attrition, right? I understand people dying, but we're only, you know what I mean? We're only what 40 years? What are we? 30 years from 1966, from the first. Don't you consider this kind of the first round of congressional hearings, the 1966?
Yeah, the Condon report was the first. First hearing, but the problem with the difference in the Condon report and Project Blue Book is that both of those were conducted with agendas. There was a clear agenda in both of those reports to tell the American people that there's nothing to this, no matter what they see, no matter what they find, make the data look like it's explainable.
So let's say, that's a contradiction to me, right? Well, if you're telling, if his job was to tell us that there's nothing to see,
right?
That means there was something to see.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well,
but just because there's
people,
something, there's something to see doesn't mean they know what it is.
They could share it. They could share what they see.
But here's the problem, though, right? And I somewhat agree with you, but I also can see it from the military aspect. Let's just theorize for a second that Roswell was real, and we recovered a craft and we recovered bodies, but we didn't get any answers from that back engineering aspect of it, and we have no idea where these things came from, and we don't know what their motivations are. How can you tell that to the American people? They're gonna ask a bunch of questions that you're not gonna have answers to, and we are paying them to have those answers.
You know what they could say? They could say, "Look, we can't show you everything. But we are going to show you some credible photographs." Or, even if they said even if they said that some of the photographs that are floating around are real, that's something, right?
Well, but they have.
They don't have. That's not giving the Chinese any technology advance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they did that in 2017. They released 3 videos, and they said,
"Yeah, I'm going back.
Those are our videos." I hear what you're saying.
I'm saying now. I'm saying that their credibility with me is kind of shaky. It's sketchy.
Of course, it is. It is. Well, that's the running theme, on my show. Is
No,
nobody trusts the government. Nobody
not with
trusts
some
what
of the
they're
people.
saying.
Not with some of the people that I've seen on your show, though. I'm losing my lighting here.
Yeah.
Some of the people like have this attitude. Well, it's the government. We must believe them. You know, how can they? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have a blind, and it's usually the younger, like the younger generation, those 20-year-olds to 20 to 30-year-olds that haven't. You know, they're not old enough to really have been through.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of being told lies, and you know, I don't know.
No, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, from the moment I was born, we've been sold war and threats since the day I was born, since 1980. You know, you go the Cold War with the Russians to, you know, the early 90s with Saddam Hussein to 9/11 with Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, and then Saddam Hussein again. You know, we've wasted trillions and trillions of dollars on war when we could have been spending those trillions and trillions of dollars helping people here in the States, figuring out our infrastructure, figuring out our immigration system, figuring out our healthcare system, taking care of veterans that are coming across, you know, in shambles, not only mentally but physically. I understand that the government lies, but on this topic, we don't have a choice. We have to believe what they say.
Oh no, we don't have to believe.
Well, we don't have to believe it. But what I'm saying is, if they release information and the information is looked at and it's sliced and diced and analyzed in every single way, and the conclusion of that work is, yeah, these videos are real. Yeah, they're telling the truth. Then I'm gonna accept it. You know, like with Lue Elizondon is part of that government machine, but we have to. I mean, look, I have family that works in law enforcement, right? I've got family that works in government. That doesn't make them evil.
No, I'm not.
Like that doesn't make them like the government is a whole bunch of individuals that make up this huge entity. But to paintbrush everybody in that government as people who are trying to deceive us, it's just
No. I don't think anybody's doing. You know? I don't think anybody's doing that. Yeah. I mean, I think we're talking about UAP, UFOs, right? We're talking about
But with
classifying information to keep it from people.
But here's the thing, right? Government has and this is what I believe with the topic, because I want to trust my government. Like I want to trust them, but they haven't shown me a lot to do that, and so I think that this topic is perfect. It's a perfect opportunity. Like if you've got a senator, for example, Marco Rubio. I'm in California. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either, but I also don't usually listen to the politics of Marco Rubio because I disagree with a lot of it. A lot of stuff he says I disagree with. A lot of stuff he says I agree with. I'm pretty much down the middle. But with this topic, when he starts talking about it, and he starts talking about it in what seems to be an earnest, honest, public forum, I respect the hell out of that. And he wins a lot of brownie points with me. And now when he talks on other topics, I listen to it in a different way because I can see he's genuinely interested in this. And so that's
it's
what I mean
it's a
by
similar
that. Like,
it's a similar reaction I had to Harry Reid and what he's done. Right, because I'm a libertarian. But I consider, a lot of these people that honestly started this thing, this most recent thing, if that's what I'm calling it a thing, were Democrats. And I was surprised about that, to be honest with you. And I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm saying I'm not saying distrust government. I'm just saying you have to question everything.
Question it.
Yeah, you have to question things. You can't
totally agree.
Blindly follow anything or anybody. I mean,
totally agree. But here's the thing with Lue, and this is sort of like why he's a polarizing figure for some people. That like a lot of people in the community really don't like him because he used to be part of that government system. Those scary 3-letter agencies. that worked in Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like
CIA,
there's
NSA.
some scary parts of his career, and that's why I've tried to get to know him as best I can. And what I am doing is I'm giving the man, because obviously Lue Elizondon is presenting a persona to me every time I talk to him. I'm sure there's layers to this man, just like there's layers to a bunch of people, to every human on the planet, not just a bunch of people. And so I'm going to trust what he's telling me is true until it's proven to be not true, or a deceptive lie. Until he does that, I'm going to question everything he says, but also give him the benefit of the doubt that, hey, this guy is probably telling us the truth, because what's his motivation? Like, why is he doing this? There's, other than just trying to, what seems to be like he's just trying to do the right thing.
I think I like Lue. I don't have any problems. Yeah. I don't. I have a lot of friends who are in the military and who've been in the military. So
right.
I'm a big fan of our military and our vets and everybody that served. Right, I have a lot of respect for them. He's kind of a unique animal, right? Because he has the cover, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Lue Elizondon, if you're listening to this, he has a cover in that he basically can, say I can't talk about that, right, and I think I don't think he's lying when he says that. I think we just haven't figured out what questions to ask him to put him.
That's, I think, a big part of it too. Yeah, is how
to crack that shell.
Everybody who asks him questions, and even when you ask him the right question, sometimes he still can't answer it. That's sort of the issue with it. I mean, he is coming out with a book, so it's going to be interesting to see what he puts in this memoir of his. I think the especially with this last week developments, we've got 2 bills right now on the Senate and Congress floor that are going to be voted on. They're going to be voted into the next National Defense Authorization Act. Especially if the Congress bill gets through. Man, oh man, in the next year, that means that Congress and the Senate could possibly have up to 5 reports next year.
Well,
anywhere between 1 and 5, which means the following year, I think we're going to get congressional hearings. We're going to get public reports. We're going to get a lot more data. And I think you're going to start to see guys like Lue Elizondon really test the boundaries of that NDA, because the information that's going to be coming out is going to make his NDA null and void, I think.
I think that's kind of the plan, though.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm a little bit suspect that there isn't an overall plan. Like, I think it was probably even planned that Lue would just leave. I don't think there was this big hoopla. I think him leaving was probably part of the plan. But again, I have this big story in my head that I want to play out. So,
right,
right, and which I think would be more interesting. But the thing about it is, I'm not one of those people and this is probably going to, get sideways with some people. But I'm not that excited, honestly, about this new government. I'm not, since I am a libertarian, I don't get excited when government grows. And
I hear you. I hear you. I mean,
I don't think we're going to get. I have a feeling. I have a feeling that all the information they collect is going to have to be filtered through, NSA, CIA, FBI, and so we may. I don't know what percentage of the information we're going to actually see, and I don't. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, what was the point?
I think the best. I use this example all the time. The medical marijuana discussion. Okay, see where that discussion has gone between 1996 and 2021. In 1996, you could not get senators or congressmen to even contemplate writing a law that would legalize medical marijuana. Like it was political suicide. By 2010, you had a state pretty much, they legalized medical marijuana, and then in, I think, 2016, we legalized recreational marijuana. It could have been 2018, I'm not sure. And now here we are in 2021, and there's multiple states that have legalized it recreationally and medicinally, and we're already talking about having, you know, bills passed that would make it a legal substance to consume nationally. So it's taken, you know, over 25 years to get to that point. Bills move slowly. Progress is slow. Like it's a process. It's not going to be an event.
Yeah,
you know. So we have to be patient. Unfortunately,
no, I know. You're talking to a guy who voted for Ronald Reagan. Okay, so I've been interested in politics ever since I turned 16 or something. So I understand, and that's part of why I'm skeptical. To be honest with you,
right.
I would rather, what I'd rather do is I would rather see the money spent on that department be awarded, like have competitions like with Avi Loeb and those kind of people, right?
I think you
should rather Squidding give him some money to develop his cloud chamber detectors. We need a portable one we can haul around to nuclear sites, right? Well, that would set it off, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think, like part of our initiative when we did our first Big Phone Home effort was to obviously try and convince our government officials that the more transparent they are with this, the more credibility they win with the American people. And it's true. Like there's no downside to talking about this topic. You're not going to lose any followers, and you're not going to have a political adversary choose this as the thing that they're going to get you with. Because if they were Mark Warner, Marco Rubio, Tim Burchett, like all of these senators and congressmen, their political rivals would jump all over this, and they're not doing it. And you got to ask yourself, well, why is that? And why do we have two bills on the floor right now that are being written and going to be signed into law? I mean, the political sort of profession, the people who really look at this, like Jazz, I saw Jazz was in the comments here, like they're all saying this is going to pass. This is going to be law by this time next year. And by this time next year, I think we're going to have a lot more reports. And I understand what you're saying. Like, I don't want to rely on the government for this, but if in 5 years we can start lobbying the government instead of giving $22 million to a program that's classified that the American people never get to see any sort of progress on, why don't you give $22 million to Harvard or Avi Loeb or the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies? There's a lot of independent UAPX with Gary Voorhees. These guys are looking for the data themselves, but they need funding. They need money, and you need a team of people. You need a whole bunch of equipment, and if we can spend billions and billions and billions of dollars looking for dark matter that we haven't found yet for the last 10 or 15 years, then why can't we throw a couple of $1 billion into a UAP study program that allows science, that gives scientists and universities and independent companies the permission to talk and study this without being ostracized or stigmatized or made fun of? And another thing they could do is allow pilots like Chris Lito to encourage them, to report these things. Because here's the real issue, is that we've got a big problem with drones. This is a real issue that it's flying under the radar and nobody's talking about it. You've got China and Russia and Antarctica and the Maldives and all of these countries sending these drones that only cost a couple of $100s to make. They look really weird. They're shaped weird. And they're doing that on purpose because they know if they fly the weirder it looks, the better. And if they could put one over a nuclear base or over a nuclear submarine or over our military training grounds, they know that if a military personnel, no matter how low or how high, sees that thing in the sky and it looks weird, they're not going to report it. So now you've got all of these countries spying on our most sensitive military assets, and nobody's reporting it because there's this stigma surrounding the topic. Nobody can walk into the office and say, "Hey, boss," or corporal, or however it works, and say, "Hey, I just saw something. It might have been a drone. It looked weird as shit. I just want to report it." And so that way we could get a reporting system. We can get data. We could start making, a pattern out of the data. But what's really happening is a lot of these things are these $100 drones with $90,000 to $100,000 worth of listening devices hooked up to them, and the Chinese don't care if that thing falls into the water and it's never seen again. They get their data and they're done. And what's really dangerous, and I think this is going to be the next step in this, and it worries the hell out of me, is swarm drones. You can launch swarm drones from a container ship, from a fishing vessel, from a garage, from anywhere, and you put small payloads of anthrax or pipe bombs on these cheap drones, and you fly them over Santa Monica Pier. Now you've got a really big problem, a really big problem, because unfortunately our billion-dollar jets, our F-16s and F-18s, those planes are not designed to take down these small craft. They're just not, and we don't have any sort of defense against these things other than to listen to them. So it's an issue.
We should ask Chris Lato. I would think they would have some sort of defensive measures. Other drones.
They don't.
We have our drones, right?
We have our drones, and there are. I know that we have like these guns that look like guns, and basically shoot EMP at these things that take them down. But go look at some of these Chinese drones that they're developing. These things are really fast.
But see, I see this, and I see this specifically as that is a military. I mean, that's obviously a military issue. Right.
It's definitely a military issue, but I think the reason why there is such a hubbub about talking about the UAP issue is because you've got everybody and their mother talking about, oh my God, there could be UFOs, there could be UAPs, there could be aliens. What are these things? And then nobody's talking about the drone problem that we have, which is exactly what the Air Force wants. They don't want people talking about this drone issue. They just don't. So they're feeding. I think part of this UFO discussion is that they're trying to destigmatize the issue for their pilots and for their ground crew, so they're not afraid to report it, so they can get a better idea of how to build defense systems for these things, how to respond to these things in case they do have a payload, because again, we don't have the systems. It's a problem. Talk to anybody in the government that has any sort of clue about this issue, and it's a huge worry. But the beautiful thing is that nobody's talking about it.
What if I'm a fan of drones?
They're trying to deal with it. Yeah, we're not talking about those kind of drones. That's for sure. Yeah, I've got a drone here too.
But I guess I don't know. I'm trying to interject a little humor there, but I mean, to me, I don't. No offense to you, but I feel like that drone is because I've flown a bunch of drones. This is just one. I've got several others.
Yeah.
They don't. To me, I mean, like I can distinctly tell the difference between a drone and.
Yeah, but we're not talking about those. We're not talking about commercial drones.
But I'm just asking. I know, but I'm wondering why are we talking about drones if we're trying to concentrate on UAPs?
Because some of these things are drones. I think. That's again like what I think.
This drone can't make this drone can't make a 90-degree turn going 16,000 miles an hour.
No, absolutely not. There's no drones that are doing that. But now we're talking about the diamond in the rough, right? Like, if we're going to take all of what it is, like, what is UAP? I think the experience you had, the experience I had, the experience that David Fravor and Alex Dietrich and these pilots had are the diamond in the rough. They're the you know, the 5% that Project Blue Book talks about that they could not verify or understand. They're the, you know, in the UAP preliminary report, I think it was 143 out of 144 cases were unresolved. They didn't know what they were. Genuine UAP. That's out of 144 cases. That means that there were probably 10,000 reports whittled down to those 144. So, yes, I agree with you. There are no drones that make 90-degree turns at 6,000 miles per hour. I don't think they exist. But at the same time, part of me will never put it past human ingenuity to have figured out something like that.
No, I think
it wouldn't shock me if the United States has a drone or a craft that does stuff.
For me, part of disclosure would be I would almost be happier to see the technology that we've created. Not how, and I don't want to see the blueprints. I just want to, you know, if we've made advancements in gravity, you know, defeating objects. I want to know that. I think that's, you know what? I think I heard something really depressing the other day, honestly, and I was going to talk to Lou about this. His attorney friend was talking about trying to get the Green New Deal passed, right?
Right.
So I'm a contractor, and I've been involved with the green energy thing since probably 1986, okay? The technology that they're wanting to fund is about that old, okay?
Right.
It's a huge waste of money, okay? What we need is this new technology. We need our new energy technology released so that we can start to heal our ecosystem with new technology, not fund it with billions, trillions of dollars on, you know, PV panels, you know, and wind power.
Right.
I've seen, how many videos have you seen of wind turbines falling, you know, being destroyed?
They're unsustainable.
None of it is. You know, electric, you know, PV panels are highly inefficient, and they drain. You know, the efficiency just kills as they go, you know, as they get older. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is I want to see the technology that could be helping us be released. I don't care if they release, you know, ET bodies or spaceships. I want them to say we've had this breakthrough in energy and this, you know, cold fusion or whatever. Did you see? I don't know if you saw the article about the new magnet that they've developed that can basically pick up a battleship electromagnet. These electromagnets are used in the fusion process, that energy process, right?
Right.
So obviously, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just bringing it up as part of what I want to see. I would rather funding, you know, money go into that type of thing than a government, you know, program or department. You see, so, and that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but I don't know. I have different experiences than a lot of the younger people do.
Right.
You know.
No, I think I've heard the exact same thing especially from contractors that have done contract work for governments on technologies and things like that. But part of me believes that the tech is already there. I mean, look at our submarines. Look at our aircraft carriers. Those things don't have to refuel.
But what right?
Ever sometimes in some cases.
Well,
depending on the submarine that you're looking at.
Yeah, nuclear
nuclear
subs or
whatever. Why are we not applying those technologies to our cities and towns? We could do it tomorrow. You know, we could start doing it tomorrow. Like, I think the technology aspect of this conversation is, for me, a crock. Like, I think we have the tech to be independent of foreign oil. The problem is that oil.
The tech that's being mass produced right now is old technology.
Well, on our ships and submarines, it is.
But that's whatever that technology is needs to be released to private industry.
I agree,
and that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about bringing out dead alien bodies and proving to me that aliens. I'm talking about getting off their butts, and you know, that's the kind of disclosure I want to see.
No, I'm right there with you, man. I don't
new
think
battery
you're
technology.
Find a lot of people that disagree with that.
We're going to be in the next 10 years a new a revolution in battery technology. We're going to have batteries that can run a pickup truck for 1,000 miles, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Well, it's coming, but that's being done through private entities that don't have any restrictions on what they can do and release. But I agree with you, man. I believe we're going to figure out this issue, but I think the biggest hurdle is not so much getting off of petroleum to power our vehicles and towns. I think the really difficult part is going to be, how do we take oil and petroleum out of the plastics and the things that we use every day that we're not even thinking about? Our shoes, our computers, the cups we drink out of with the plastic tops. Like, all of this stuff has oil in it, and it's not as easy as just flipping the switch. But I agree with you. I think we should be. I'm hoping that this sort of ending of war in Afghanistan, and I hope we pull out of places like the Sudan and Iraq and stop messing with places like Iran and start really coming up with solutions that make us the leader in the new world energy discussion.
We could be, and we should be. We should be the leaders.
I think we should be too.
And we should be looking towards private industry, the private sector. Mm-hmm. And the private sector, honestly, will, if this happens, it will be the private sector. And so you can kind of see where my loyalties lie. But I put that article link in the chat on the YouTube side. Government couldn't make it happen. Thank you, Chris. But you see, it's funny how I know, and I understand it's going to take a combination, right? It's going to take people who are on the, I'm not going to say leftist. People who are on the left think government is the answer. People on the right or the middle, like I'm a libertarian, I don't think government is the answer, right? Look at Elon Musk, right? I mean, he's hauling people to the space station for NASA, right? That's a private company,
Right.
And I would like to see, and I know Elon's working on battery technology too, right? But of course it's going to be his patent, but that's one thing. The patenting issue could be something that government helps work out, right? Yeah. Make patents expire quicker, or something like that. I don't know. You see, there needs to be coordination between private industry and government.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a huge big thing, right? So you can see why. I don't know. I have a hard time getting really excited over a new office until I see them wanting to get, because what it is, honestly, Lou, what it is it's just another place to have lifelong bureaucrats planted in Washington, honestly,
Yeah, but you want to know something, man? Like, and I've thought about this too. Like, I just speaking as a I don't want to call myself just a purely libertarian, but I campaigned really hard for Ron Paul for 8 years. And I've seen what the political system does to real voices in it. I'm not stopping this machine. If I could get a couple $2 billion for a UFO office.
I don't want you to. You see, I think and I don't mean to sit here and be argumentative with you at all.
No.
I think people. It's going to take. All I'm saying is it's going to take a heavy influence from both sides.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
It's not just citizens voting. It's citizens acting out in their own businesses, saying, "Hey, you know what? I've got this idea. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this idea that I got from some government contractor, and I'm going to expand it." Look at Wozniak starting his own space company. I think that's crazy, but it's also cool.
Yeah, well, right? I mean, I think you're going to start to see a lot more billionaires start their space companies, especially as the technology becomes cheaper. And that's the thing is the tech is becoming cheaper and cheaper every day. And I think that's why you're starting to see a push from our governments, because they know you know, the sky is unclassified. Anybody can take a telescope, anybody can take recording devices and look at the sky. You don't need to join the army or the military to do that. And so, you know, as these telescopes, as these camera systems get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and easier to use, and the fidelity of these things is clearer and clearer every single year, I think we're going to start to see independent private hands start to force the government to disclose this stuff. And I think the government sees that. I think they see it coming from 20 miles away, and they're just trying to get ahead of it as best they can. But they're not going to give it to us all in one report or video, or, you know, they're gonna piece it to us. They're gonna give us clues here and there. They're gonna let people like Lue Elizondon talk. They're gonna release videos like they've released. They're gonna give permission to pilots to talk more. I think it's they know what they're doing. Like everybody always says, oh, you know, in the government, the one hand's doing one thing while the other hand is doing something completely different. Yeah, I agree with that to a point, but I also believe that they know what they're doing, and especially from a military aspect. When, you know, and Christopher Mellon said this in one of his blogs, like, we've got the citizens are providing better information about UAP and UFOs than our own military. I think. Well, I mean,
people like Chris,
long.
People like Chris Lato were, you know, they were stifled for, you know what I mean? It's just now the culture is just now changing. You know what I mean? You can't really blame people in the military who were chastised and you know, kicked off the roster for flying a mission because they had mental issues. you know, but yeah, you know, can you imagine? You know, what drives, you know, industry and change is demand, right? Can you imagine if the government, maybe they've got some like tech they could release that was like 50% of a gravity reduction, right? Maybe we don't get the full thing, but can you imagine the space and tourism industry kicking off? You know?
Well, it is. I mean, I think in the next 10 years, we're going to start to see people take drones to work. You know, like drones picking you up and taking you to the restaurant.
Oh, I thought you meant like me. I take mine to work every day.
Yeah, right. No. I mean like actually driving in them, and fully autonomous drones. I mean, when it first comes out, of course, only the ultra rich are going to be able to afford it. It's going to be a very luxurious thing to do. But that can only last for so long. Pretty soon, you know, people are going to want to also, you know, hey, I want to get to San Diego in 15 or 20 minutes. We could do that in a high-powered, you know, drone. Let's do it. Or that's probably a little too short, but let's say a half hour, 40 minutes. But people are going to want that technology as soon as it's available, and I think it's coming. And the more we see space tourism, the more we see autonomous drones flying more people in the skies. I think people are going to start seeing these UAP on their own, and they're going to start asking questions. I think it's a matter of time before a person like Elon Musk is like, yeah, we've been looking at these things. You know, I think the government sees that it's going to happen with or without them. So I think part of the government is looking at it and saying, well, we might as well take this opportunity and be the first to the party, because again, they've got a golden opportunity to win a lot of credibility, not only with the American people, but with the world. Can you imagine if the United States came out and started giving us some really substantial stuff? You know, and when I say stuff, I mean like multiple angles of a craft, longer videos, radar tracking information, things that scientists can look at and do the math on and come to a conclusion. Oh my God, there's something here. We need to study it. I think if our government is the first to do that, I think you're going to see a lot of people trusting our government, even if it's only a little bit more. They're going to trust them a little bit more because again, it's a bipartisan issue.
I don't. I think I have a healthy I don't think I don't totally distrust the government, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that more could be done. I think if we could, I know it's human nature to take sides, right? It's if somehow we can beat through the politics enough to come together on one or two issues, that we would see a lot, right? Look what happened when Kennedy challenged us to go to the moon. We kicked butt, right?
Right.
Now, I don't know what it would take, maybe.
I think this topic is very good for something like that. Very, very good for something like that. Because again, if a president comes out and says, hey, these things are real, this technology is real, and we're going to be the first country to figure it out, I think that is a bipartisan message that anybody can get on board with.
Well, there you go again, insinuating that they haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But let's say, again, like, I always love using the example as well as, you got Marco Rubio and you've got Hillary Clinton, both who are grossly entrenched in this topic. They were really interested in this topic. And they're both opposite ends of the spectrum, politically speaking. If you put them in a room and you said, hey, you're only allowed to talk, you have a 4-hour discussion, and the first 2.5 hours have to be about UFOs. You can't talk about anything else. And then the rest of the time, you guys can go into any other topics you want. I think they walk out of the room with a lot more common ground than they did when they walked into the room. For me, that's sort of the power of the topic. And
you made me think of something, though, when you said that, was that with some people, there's too much history, like too much political history, and that's why we need new blood in this. Yeah. We need to be electing people. If we're going to rely on government for this, then we got to get more involved with elections and elect the people that we want in there because of this issue, right? Because some of these people, you just made me realize, if you put, try to put Trump and Clinton in a room and have them work out something, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
But let's say you tell Trump and Clinton, you come into this room in the first 2 hours, you're only allowed to talk about women and golf.
Well, Trump would say, you can't tell me what to talk about.
No, I'm just saying. Saying, hypothetically.
Yeah.
If you put them both in a room and you say, all right, gentlemen, the first topics are ladies and golf. That's all you're allowed to talk about. Again, I think they come out of that room with a lot more common ground than they did going into it. Because, all we got to do is find the topic that everybody is into.
Yeah.
And I think the new blood, I don't even think we have to elect officials. I think they're already interested. They really are. I mean, look at the bills that they voted on.
But we got to take a long range approach, though. I mean, right? I'm not talking about electing officials in 2 years. I'm saying we need to start grooming new people now who are interested. I'm saying if we want government to play a real role in this, if we want to change government to have it have a real role, then that's what we have to do. Otherwise, we're going to have to take those same young people who still have their minds about them and know the technology and can develop the technology. We need to start supporting them privately, one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
I don't know why we don't have like a crowdfunding specialized area where we say, okay, everybody in the UFO community get together and say, let's pick somebody we want to fund and have a crowdfunding effort for those people.
Yeah. I think. Well, look. Here's the issue with it, right? Is what district in this country, is going to put the UAP issue number one on their list?
Yeah, that's why it's going to be up to. I mean, did Elon Musk wait for a community to ask him?
No, of course not. Of course not. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, I think the best thing about Donald Trump is that he inspired an entire new generation of people to get into politics. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. Same thing with Bill Clinton. There's always going to be a new group of people. The thing with our generation is starting to take over this, the government. These seats that have been held by The same people, especially in the case of like Dianne Feinstein or Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or any one of these people, Bernie Sanders, they've been there for 30 years plus. And they're starting to be replaced by younger, more progressive thinking people. This is a bill in the most politically divisive times in this country since the Civil War. The one thing that both sides can vote on almost unanimously is the UAP issue. Every single time. The last vote they had, I believe it was a 58-2 vote, if I'm not mistaken. I could have the numbers wrong on that, but there was only 2 senators that didn't vote for it. 2. I think the next political presidential debate, I think UAPs are going to be a part of it, a big part of it. It's going to be a question asked in our next presidential debates, because by 2024, we're going to possibly have, 2021 right now? So by 2022, 23, in 3 years, we will have possibly 15 reports that have been submitted to Congress. 15, just on the topic of UAP. I think by 2024, a lot of those reports that have been submitted in a classified setting, I think are going to start to be declassified and shared with the American people. And I think this is going to be it's not going to be a huge part, but it's going to be a part of the conversation more than it's ever been before. Because the thing with this topic, right, is that you shouldn't be angry about it. Some of us have had traumatic experiences. Some of us have had great experiences. But I don't think there are a lot of people who've lost their mother to this experience. I don't think there's a lot of people who are...
I lost 2 wives.
I don't think there are a lot of people that have been, put out on the street because they didn't have enough UFO information. You know what I mean? Like,
no, but
it's an issue. It's an issue that doesn't. You better have something really, really, really good if you want the American soccer mom to pay attention to this issue.
I think if we could put Chris Lato on a poster.
Hell yeah.
I like his approach. He gave me this idea, and I'm pretty sure this idea already exists. If we had some sort of data collection website, like, I have a website that I collect my own information on. I collect data that is interesting to me, and there's all my categories. But if we had somebody like Chris, I'm electing Chris, to get people to, if we had that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to see a private data collection company and, have, Chris or somebody like Chris head that up, and we would fund him. I've got IT guys. I've got 10 websites that I've
built. You can do that right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You can do that right now with Avi Loeb.
But that's what I wonder. How do you find out? How do we? We need to have like a monthly meeting where we discuss technology and understand what's existing, because there may already be a website like that. And I like Chris's idea of us reporting data. Our locations and time, the date stamp, and uploading a clip of the video or whatever. If we had a website that data was collected on, then it could be, data could be mined from it.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that I get excited about. You see, and that's just an example of. I think that's the kind of stuff that we as private individuals should be doing, while we sit around twiddling our thumbs and waiting on the government to do anything.
Well, look, we're not asking. Here's what we're asking the government to do. We don't we don't want you to do the work. All we want is congressional hearings. We want to put this topic out in front of the American people so it inspires a person like Elon Musk to spend his own billion, 2 billion, 10 billion, however much he wants to spend into looking into this topic. Because now he sees a congressional hearing that has F-16 fighter pilots, that has former top-level government officials, and say, you know, you throw in a Michio Kaku or a Bill Nye the Science Guy in there just to make it even more understandable for all the layman's. I think you're going to have an explosion of companies that are going to want to start trying to collect this data and figure out this issue themselves, because I think we don't need the government's permission to do this, but it sure as hell would help. Like, if the government was coming out and being honest and forthright with the issue and telling people that there is a there, there is technology, there is something that we don't understand, and these are the characteristics of the technology. Now, go figure it out. I think you're going to have an explosion of entrepreneurs that are going to say, oh, shit, wow, this is real. We can actually devote our money and time into this and not be laughed at and not be ridiculed. We can write papers, scientific, papers that can be peer reviewed.
I think they're hoarding information that they need to give us, though. I don't even think they need to give us the information they're hoarding. Again, well, they would have to if they have information on new technology, anti-gravity, or some sort of new energy source, or whatever propulsion system. They just like anybody else. There's probably different levels of that technology that they could release. Right? I'm not asking for the F-35. I'm asking for the F-22 or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm saying the government could assist in maybe the transition. There shouldn't be just disclosure. There should be a transition and of the power of holding that information to the public. That's the whole point.
I think that transition starts with congressional hearings. For me, that's where I believe that transition begins.
Or we need some rogue people inside the government to leak it.
Well, we've got one, but yeah, we need more. And I think, again, I think depending on what happens with the investigation, with the Inspector General, what happens with Lue Elizondon and again the Inspector General regards and what comes out of that. And I think if you couple that with, again, the congressional hearings, you couple that with another video or another angle of video that already exists, I think you're gonna, it's coming. I think it's coming. We just have to, we want it now, and it's not going to come right now. That's all I'm saying. We have to be patient. We have to look at it as, again, that medical marijuana discussion.
Patience is actually not one of my virtues, to be honest with you.
I know.
As a general contractor, I can't have patience.
It's going to destroy you then. It's not going to be any fun.
It already has, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's kind of like I don't know. I hate to keep using Elon Musk or somebody like that, but I just can't. I keep going back to visualizing him. Someone telling him, "No, you can't go to space now. You're going to have to wait till the government releases the technology." It's kind of that thing for me. And I know we have the minds. We just need the funding. And
well, we just need, but those minds and the people with the money to provide the funding.
Yeah, so there has to be somebody to coordinate all that. They
need permission.
We need a young new face. I'll let Chris Leto as the face of this person who's going to coordinate.
All we need is Chris Leto to raise a couple $100 billion, and it'll be all good. But reduced gravity also brings up a good point here in the chat. He says Luis wants the government on the hot seat to be accountable, right? And that's exactly right. If we get congressional hearings, you put people under oath. It puts people it makes the government accountable to answer questions on this topic.
The problem is, Lou, the congressional hearings are just going to be the government getting information from private entities, right? It's not going. There's not going to be anybody on under oath on these things.
Yeah, well, yes, there will be.
Why?
Yes,
Why would there?
because
No, because they'll do
yes.
it. It's a soft thing, right? It's not a.
No,
It's going to be it's going to be a cushy, feel good. Oh, let's have congressional hearings, and we're going to ask people questions, and we're going to try to get information, and then we're going.
They're not trying to send anybody to jail with congressional hearings. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Look, I'm asking for congressional hearings not because I think we're going to get some ultra secret that's going to make this topic explode. Why? The reason I want congressional hearings is because it puts people that work for the government on the record under oath, number one. Number two, it puts the topic, the idea, to the rest of the population that there is something in the sky that is 100% real and we don't know what it is.
Yeah, but they're not going to put anybody on the stand that
yes, they will.
That can release classified information.
They don't need to release classified information, is what I'm telling you. All we need to do in a congressional hearing setting is to provide people the argument that there's something there.
My point
we don't know what it is.
My point is that they classify these things so that they can say we can't put you on the stand and ask you questions about it. That's the whole. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But listen, I'm not. But I think you're misunderstanding me. I don't want a 4-star general at congressional hearings. I want the people that have already come out and told their story at congressional hearings. So I want to hear from Lue Elizondon. I want to hear from Christopher Mellon. I want to hear from David Fravor, Alex Dietrich, Chad Underwood, who are the pilots that filmed and chased these things. And I want to hear from a Michio Kaku as to why Americans need to pay attention to this issue. That's what we have to get them to under. We don't need we're not going to get the ship. We're not going to get any classified information in a public congressional hearing. I agree with you. But what we are going to do is change the narrative, change the discussion at the water cooler from what happened at Monday Night Football to, holy shit, did you see the 4 hours of congressional UFO hearings yesterday? Did you hear what they said? Like, that's what I want. I want the like, you know, the UFO Twitter world is maybe, let's just say, and I'll round up here, 1 million people. There's 360 million people in this country that don't know what the hell's going on and are not privy to this because they haven't been presented with the information on a major public format.
Some of them don't want to know either.
No, some of them don't want to know either, but we're past that point. Like, we need to make the public comfortable with the idea that there is a there. It's real. There's no more questions about it. Now we have to figure out as a country, as a society, what is this? What are we dealing with? We need to give the permission to our universities and to our scientists to openly discuss this without losing tenure. Okay, like stuff like if you have congressional hearings, you don't get fired anymore because you want to, as a Harvard professor, look into this, and it's happening. Like it's happening. So it's, you know, again, I'm not looking for the top secret classified information. I just want to change the narrative, and then once the narrative is changed, once we've got everybody at the water cooler and soccer moms and everybody is on the same level of understanding that, yes, there are things in the sky that our pilots are chasing, that are showing up over nuclear facilities, that are defying our understanding of physics. Once we understand that paradigm is real, then we can start having the discussions about top secret classified information or alien bodies or wherever the conversation goes after that. But we have to have that paradigm shift first. Like we have to, there has to be congressional hearings where kids see and hear what's going on, where their parents are talking at their dinner table about this, and they're talking about possible alien life visiting our planet.
Well, and that's a tough one too, right? Because a tough one. I've had 3 kids, right? They're all grown now, right? But after I had my experiences when I was a teenager and I started having kids and I was taking them to church and I was trying to teach them how to be responsible adults and, You know what I mean? You can't. You find yourself, I would make jokes like, well, Jesus may be coming back in a spaceship. I mean, I made these jokes when they were young kids, right?
Right,
and I would get the eyebrow raised by their mom, right? And, so I never really got into that because it's so difficult. Right. I mean, you talk about bursting a bubble, telling a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old that Santa Claus is really from Venus or something, it's hard to do, and it doesn't happen really.
But let me ask you this, Tony. Let's say we had congressional hearings and your kids came over for dinner that night, and they're like, "Oh my God, did you guys see the 4 hours of congressional hearings? Did you hear what they said? Do you think this is real?"
And they would say, "What's a congressional hearing?"
Well, they might say that too. But I think honestly, if you have a 4-hour discussion that plays on Fox, MSNBC, CBS, C-SPAN, and it's all about congressional UFOs, I think you're going to get a lot of people that normally would not be paying attention to that conversation all of a sudden paying attention to that conversation, because it's going to be, everybody's going to want to be talking about this. Like,
you would have
the government is admitting that
you would have to infiltrate TikTok and Reddit, and
for sure. But
which Reddit's already infiltrated.
You don't think that story would infiltrate those mediums? I think it would. And I think they would come and they would say, maybe they sit down at the table and they say, "Oh, this is BS. There's nothing to this." And then all of a sudden, Dad chimes in with a story. Because it's giving you the permission now to talk to your kids about this, because now they're questioning the reality of this. But ArtisanTony, Dad, he's got a story. He's lived an experience, and now you can lay that experience because they're grown adults. And now they've also heard it from their government, and now it's easier for a person like you to come out and be like, "No, there's something there, and you guys need to pay attention to it, not be so flippant about it." I think it changes the discussion, it changes the narrative, and I think that's going to be the hardest thing for us to do as a society, is to really sit down and understand, okay, they're real, they're here. And I don't think that would be a huge pill to swallow for most people. I think most people would be like, "Yeah, I pretty much do that."
I wanted to talk. I know we're already at 90 minutes, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, just not now, but later, maybe you can come back on again, is this issue about what humans are capable. Like I'm a firearms instructor. I don't do it professionally, but I did it when my sons were in Scouts. I became a certified firearms instructor to be able to sign off on their rifle shooting merit badge, right?
Right.
So in training, we learned about flight or fight responses that humans have, right? Because you don't know, you don't understand what that shock is until you see it. Until you have a gun in your face, you can't imagine it, right? And look at the people in the military that have PTSDs.
Yeah.
It's that when I had my experience, it's not even that. You can't fight or flight. There's something in our DNA that allows us to recognize something alien, right? Right. We know as a human, when you see something that odd, and you kind of feel it, it's almost like a shock. It's a stunning feeling, right? And I forgot where I was going with this because I had flashbacks. But
yeah.
what I'm saying is that we don't. There may be some things that are best left alone. Not best left alone, but I think it's going to take. I don't think everybody's ready for that.
I think that's why the government is doing it the way they're doing it.
Yeah, because I've had, I basically have either lucid dreaming or nightmares or something, basically nightly, every night. It's
even now.
Oh yeah. Oh no, my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a.
Well, let me ask you this.
I didn't really mean to get into that or start that, but
that's okay.
I guess my point was, I don't know how you brought this up in my mind somehow. We were talking about talking to our kids about it.
Yeah.
I knew that, and I know how it feels, and I know how that works when you what you think about every night before you lay down. And some people are not going to want their kids thinking about that every night when they lay down.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Now, my kids are old enough now, right? But I'm thinking about those people who have
like, for
6 year olds.
I don't know if you saw on the Discovery Channel like a month or so ago, they had this UFOs Declassified Live. I think it was like a 4-hour live event that they did on the Discovery Channel, and my sister's kids were watching it while I was watching it, and my little goddaughter, she's 10 years old, and she was scared. She's like, "Is this real? Are aliens real?" And I was like, "Wow, I've never thought of." And it honestly, it put me right in the shoes of the government officials that made the decision to not bury this.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Because how do you have that discussion with a child? And then somebody had told me, well, it's probably the same way you have a discussion with your child about Jesus being crucified on a cross and dying for your sins. Like, that is horrific.
See, that's done in the church. It's done slowly, gradually over years, right? I mean, obviously we've had 1,000 years to figure this out, where each Sunday they go to Sunday school. They have a little, have you ever seen the little flannel graph? It's like a velvety board, and you have the little velvet figures that stick up there. It's like old-timey Velcro. We would go into Bible stores, would be played out on that, was it flannel graph? It's like taking Velcro figures and sticking it on a board. In other words, it's very benign at first, right? So you tell the baby Jesus story.
I was raised Catholic in Miami. It was not that benign and not that friendly. Okay, like it was put in you to scare you to be good. And so, yeah, man, it's going to have to be one of those things that we figure out. And I think that's why they're not just like, here it is, there's the information, It'd be like throwing a grenade in a room and just walking away. You're going to have to slowly get people acclimated to this idea. And I think the first step is just getting them to realize that it's real. Like, it's actually real. Once we get past that step, I don't know what the next step is after that. I'm curious to know what the next step would be. But I mean, I don't even know if we would have to change like the way we teach our children or any of these other things. I think that would have to come if they landed on the White House lawn and they're like, we're here to stay. Here's our technology. Here's the secrets to the universe. Then we would have to be forced to sit our kids down and be like, okay, they're aliens, they're here, here's what they're doing here. Like, but if that doesn't happen, which I don't think it will, I think just this slow process, just getting people used to this idea, really, really, really getting them to understand, letting it sink into their thought process of how they work out through their day.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with releasing like incrementally, maybe better technology at first, and letting the technology catch up while we're somehow, initializing our kids somehow.
Right.
It may be that we have to pick a generation, and just.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our kids are not going to be, Imagine if in 5 years we have, and I'm not going to be specific, but let's just say we have a much better idea of what the answer is, right? That means that our kids are going to be the ones that maybe fly these things, maybe really understand and know how to integrate that kind of technology into our societies. This is not going to be for you and me. Like, we might get
no, man, but I got to know before I pick up, before I start pushing up daisies.
I think we're going to get a really good idea, but I don't think we're going to get all the answers.
No, not until I'll have to pass over to the other side, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. I don't even think then. I don't even think then, man. It's going to be it's. Like the
I do think we'll know. I do think that's where my spiritual side comes in. I think we will know after when we die.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I hope so. That'd be cool.
I mean, just look at it this way. Think of the chances. I mean, even if all of the religions are wrong, right? We still have this backup plan B. You know, where these these beings are saying that our spirits are just our bodies are just a shell for our being. Right.
Right.
So there's all these plan B and plan C and plan. I think if you add all that up on average, the answer is yes. There's an afterlife, and we'll know. But I'd rather know now because I'd like to enjoy this life. You know, what I've got left. I don't know what 10 or 15 years. I don't know how much I've got left. You know. So.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, in your mind. And in my, like, I don't need the confirmation from the government. I know what I saw.
Oh, yeah. No. See, that's what I'm saying.
I kind of have an answer, at least a lot more of an answer than most people, I think. I feel like I'm privileged to have seen it. Whereas I don't think you are as privileged to have seen it. I think you're more terrified of it, which is also just that's a whole nother conversation to have.
Well, yeah, but that's where see, we all have these different experiences, so we come at it from different angles, right? That's why I don't really need the government to tell me any, you know, I would rather, that's why I'm in the you know, on the bench of, you know, just release the technology. I already know what I think is the answer. You know what I mean?
I know. Well, here's the thing, though, is that most people don't have our perspective.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have that experience of seeing this thing right in front of your face. They don't have that experience of some people, you know, like you explained, have nightmares and these things really mess with your head. And it's what our side of the discussion really needs to understand is we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that have never seen this ever, and they've never even thought about it. They never even really given it much thought. Those are the people that we need to get acclimated to this idea, and then once they're caught up to where we are, then I think we could start opening the doors on some really fun conversations. But we have to be patient.
Yeah,
I know we don't want to be.
We're gonna need some spokespeople for like somebody young and hip and smart, like not Elon Musk, but someone like that to agree to bring. Because my kids are like, oh, my dad's nutty, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just think I'm nutty. They don't take it seriously. You know, we need some spokesperson.
It's coming. That person is coming. That's why I think.
And see, even Lue Elizondon kind of speaks to people my age. I mean, he doesn't. Right. He doesn't. I mean, I'm sure young people think he's cool and hip. Yeah. If I was, I would think he was hip or cool and hip. But I think we're going to need those.
Yeah, I mean, people. Well, I think that's what Tom DeLonge was thinking too. You know, he's like,
well, Tom DeLonge's kind of disappointed me a little bit, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I think
he's kind of halfway give up on the whole being being a spokesperson. I honestly think that was his role when he first got involved. See, I'm one of these people that think all this is planned, like his role was planned, and that's I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but I do think that some of the I think his role was supposed to be in that capacity, and I think he just I don't know, maybe changed his mind or is not interested, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look, he's done a couple of interviews. I think 3 or 4 interviews here in the last month, and he's still talking about this stuff. He's not. Every book that he writes, every film that he makes, has to do with this topic. Some of the interviews I've seen. Obviously, where he's talking about music, and I respect that. Right. He kind of acts like he doesn't, or I have a feeling he actually talked to the interviewer before because zero comes up about it. And did you see the interview he did? What was that podcaster? It was a music
podcast or something. It was all about music, and I kept thinking,
from Australia, the guy from Australia.
I don't know. I kept thinking, okay, this is going to come up. It's going to come up. It's going to no. You know. So I thought to myself, he must have to. It must be tough, honestly, because he probably has to say, this is what I'll talk about, and this is what I won't talk about. You know, with interviews, it's like.
No.
It's like as if you told me before you came on, no, I just want to talk about my acting career. I don't want to talk about, UAPs or whatever.
Right.
But,
right. Yeah, that would be a very short interview.
Interesting, but
yeah. No, I see what I mean. I kind of understand what you're saying. I think Tom has. I don't know Tom, but for me it seems like maybe he hit a wall. Partly, I think that wall was they ran out of money. And I think that there were different ideas as to what direction the company should go in. And so when, obviously they split up, it was like the Beatles breaking up. For me, it seems like Tom's focus right now is his music, are his movies and his books that he's writing. But there is this underlying, the underlying interest of this, and I've like I said, I've listened to his last 3 interviews, and the last 3 interviews I listened to him, he was talking about this quite.
I need to go re-look. I need to go do.
Yeah, maybe I'll send you some links. But he's not afraid to I think you're right. I think a lot of these interviews he's going into it with, hey, I want to talk about my band, so make sure we talk about that, and then, of course, ask whatever you want.
I understand that. I get it. Yeah. He can't talk about UFOs every time he does an interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, to do this in a timely fashion, which is going to take 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
We need kind of like I don't know. We need some faces that represent that can speak to young people.
I mean,
that they trust.
Look what Demi Lovato's doing. She's coming out with her own TV show about UFOs. I mean, Demi Lovato. Last I checked, I'll check right now.
Well, there you go. I had no idea. I don't even follow her, so there may be other things going on.
Demi Lovato. I'm looking at her Instagram. Right. Hold on. Where is she? She's got 55 million followers. And she's doing an entire television show just talking about this stuff. So it's coming, man. It's coming. And I think, the more honest our government is with this topic, the more inspiration like this happens. I think it gives permission to people who've had experiences to speak up. Like, as much as I hate to admit it, our government is with all of its problems, all of its issues, it's the best form of government that's ever existed. And I think people inherently want to trust their government. And I think this is a golden opportunity to do stuff like that. And I think they're going to take it, but they're going to do it their way, not our way. And I think in 10 years, we're going to have a lot easier time talking about I think if knock on wood, we're both around in 10 years, I think that you're going to be able to talk about the experiences that you're really hesitant to talk about. And God, I'd love to hear these stories.
Well, we need to set up another interview sometime when you got a chance, and we'll do that. I wanted this interview to be about you. And
we're talking about the.
I know, but I wanted my first interview with you to be about you. So I think that's.
I appreciate that.
I
appreciate that. But I am damn curious.
Well, good. You're going to come back then.
It's something we need to talk about. And it's something that I think. If you had 50 senators talking about this, I don't think ArtisanTony is as reluctant to tell his story.
Well, what I've been wanting to do,
take more opportunities to talk about it.
A lot of my channel is where I do my design videos for my customers.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna do is go into SketchUp, and I'm gonna set up the scene of what happened to me in SketchUp, so I can have a visual aid for it.
That would be killer.
So
That would be
Maybe
good.
I'll have that ready for our next interview.
No, and those stories are important, man. You know, like those are the stories that people are going to be looking to. You know, because the beautiful thing about ArtisanTony and his channel is that there's nothing about this on your channel. You know, like you said, you're an architect, you're a builder, you're a person who deals in reality, but you've also had an experience, and I think it's because of the last 4 years, you're sort of now exploring this in a public way. You know, if the government doesn't come out with the information they came out with in 2017, are we talking about this today, you and I, on your channel?
No. There would still be those guys that are out there, right? Like Secure Team or whatever.
For sure, but you.
Yeah, no, I know.
You be
Yeah,
talking
thankfully there would always be UFO channels on YouTube. But you're right.
But,
you're right. I would still be doing. I wouldn't be, and I go through this. I go through this weird feeling. Like after my interview with Chris Lato, I went through this weird thing of, oh God, I have to make that video private. People are going to think I'm. You see, it's really there's a real stigma. It's tangible. It's not
tangible.
It is not.
But Tony, it's crumbling.
Yeah,
it's crumbling, and you are proof of that.
Yeah,
you know, like that's why I think the government plays such an important part in this discussion, because if they're more honest, more people like you are going to come forward. More doctors, more lawyers, more pilots, more scientists, more theoretical physicists that maybe have had the exact same experience.
I don't want to give people the impression I'm anti-government. I want half of us to be, they want the government to take care of it, and I want the other half of us to be, I'm a capitalist. I'm a private business owner. I would have loved to have been in this industry. I would have loved to. Who didn't dream of being a mad scientist when they were a kid, right? I would love to be in this industry right now. And I put real money behind things like this. And that's why while we were during the interview, all these thoughts were going through my head. We need to be crowdfunding. We need to be supporting people who want to do things.
Yeah, and it's coming.
I can see rather be squidding portable cloud chamber, on the market in 2 years.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's your own UAP inside your own portable cloud chamber. I mean, there's a lot of brilliant people out there that I think, just like you, they're scared. This stigma is so heavy, and they don't want to share their experience because they haven't publicly been given permission. And I'm with you, man. Like, I don't want to rely on our government for everything. Like, I'm Cuban. Like my parents escaped socialists, dictator, Cuba. Like, I don't want our government to resolve everything for us. And I think you're right. I think that this is going to be a private and public and government effort. It's going to take all of us. But for me, I think the conversation really gains a lot of steam when it's taken seriously by and I'm going to put this in quote, leaders. Okay.
Right.
When the people that we rely on to make laws are taking this and writing laws about this topic, it's time to really start paying attention. And I think the wheels have been set in motion. Lou talks about getting in the third, fourth, fifth gear. He always relates this discussion to a gearbox in a sports car, and that we just now are getting in the third gear. And I think he's right. I think that, when we get the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth gear, depending on what kind of vehicle we're driving, I always think it's a huge semi-truck going uphill. That's the way I picture this discussion. And all we just need to do is get over the hump and coast down. And it's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be scary, but it has to start from the top. It has to. Because again, like if you're hearing a pilot talk about this crazy encounter, and you yourself have had an encounter that rings true, or something that he says where you're like, all these memories start flooding back to you, and maybe that inspires you to go see a therapist or talk to a friend, or start a YouTube channel and discuss your experiences. I think that's a good thing.
I've actually wanted to look into regression, hypnosis or whatever it's
I would say
called.
be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful. Just make sure whatever you do, you seek out professional licensed help. I would really be careful with hypnotherapists, because a lot of them have agendas and they're not clinical.
No, I wouldn't go to like someone who specializes in because it's actually content, especially if it was going to be content for them. It has to be
exactly. Yeah, no,
it would have to be a private thing.
A clinical psychologist would be my number one suggestion for you.
No, it would be somebody local here in my own town, somebody I could get references from.
Yep.
I'm just saying that when you brought that up, the subject did come to my mind at one point.
Yeah.
To see if because I'm curious, because some people have said my experience was just it was hallucination, or it was blah blah blah, it was this or that, whatever, and I would but anyway.
Well, let me ask you this: would you be upset or disappointed if it turned out to be something just in your own head?
Honestly, I would almost wish it. Well, it would be more. I think I could come to some form of peace with it if it was.
There you go.
Was because. Anyway, sorry.
No. I think you should do it. I think it would be very, very helpful. Because if you can have a couple of weeks of therapy, and that therapist says to you, "Hey, listen, like, I can't be 100% sure if what your experiences was real, but your subconscious, your conscious, your body, all of the telltale signs that a psychologist looks for is telling me that you had a real experience." I think that's also valuable.
I mean, there's a lot of coincidences surrounding it, and if my mother was still alive, she could vouch for this. God rest her soul. I lost my hearing in my left ear. I had to have these tubes. Of course, that was pop, and of course, you see, there's all these answers, right? People will say, "Oh, it was popular when you were a kid to have tubes in your." Yeah, it was, but I also had these hearing issues. The reason I went to the doctor was because I had these hearing issues right after this. And then I had the tubes in my ears. Okay? So, and I'm, to this day, I'm deaf in my left ear. And if I hear a certain video and it has no sound, I have to turn my headphones around. Because sometimes the channel, how you'll have a mono. Yeah. So, I mean, to this day, and that has nothing to do with working in construction or, because my other ear's perfectly fine.
The thing that really struck me about what you said is that you think about it every night. Every night. So clearly it had an impact on your life, and I would highly recommend to see a therapist about it. I really, really would. Not because I think you're wrong or you're crazy or anything like that, but because there's a lot of trauma that you've clearly have hidden from this, and I think the more comfortable you become with facing that trauma, the better off you will be. Whether or not you get the answer or you don't, I think it'll bring you some sort of peace in the end of it. And maybe you go to bed one night without thinking about it. I think that would be the goal, because I know for me, I couldn't sleep for weeks after it happened.
I'll talk more about it whenever we are next time. But I've actually got videos on my phone from where I took videos at night. Like, I'll be thumbing through my pictures on my phone, and I'll be like, "Oh, what's that video?" And it'll be a video or a picture that I took in the middle of the night that I didn't even know I took.
Yeah.
That's like wild. Here's one.
Yeah.
Where's my? There we go.
I can't. I can't see it. Let me
Yeah,
see if
I'll maybe get some of these. You know, it's kind of weird. Like all that stuff is weird stuff, right? So
yeah.
it's very hard to talk about, but it's
Right.
all I know is that there's something. I don't know. Anyway, I really I wasn't prepared. It's been 2 hours. It's time to go. No, just kidding.
No, man.
No, it's tough. Let's put it that way. It's
Yeah, well,
tough.
I can tell you this, man. The people who I've spoken to who've had, up close and personal, real close, personal face to face time with these things, it traumatizes the hell out of them. Yeah, it absolutely terrifies them. And when I say people, I mean former government, military men. I mean people who are relied upon for very, very important aviation information. Like these are not dum dums. These are not, crazy people. And the experiences that they share would absolutely blow your mind. And sometimes when they tell me, I'm just like, what?
Can you see that?
Let me see. A little bit. It looks like a roof or a light or something.
Yeah, but I don't remember taking that picture.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's one of the videos.
Weird. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
looking at it.
I don't. Those are just. Anyway, I'm going to embarrass myself.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're embarrassing yourself. I mean, like, man,
but
it's
weird.
if
It's
you
just
didn't take them.
it's crazy stuff, you know.
Right.
And so people, my customers and my friends, they know I'm not crazy, but
Right.
if I go, this kind of stuff starts to head you there, right? The other thing is,
it's hard for them to understand.
as a firearms instructor, we have to be careful about red flag laws and all this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of people who would never talk about this kind of stuff because they would be
Right.
afraid of that kind of thing.
Right.
So
Right. Well, see, but again, like, here's the thing, Tony. Like, if we had congressional hearings and let's say we had the president of the United States come out and confirm that these things are real, I bet you $1 million, $1 million, that the people who have listened to your story know the story and that have either scoffed at you in the past, or maybe looked at you a little weird, would reach out to you and be like, "Hey, that thing. Can you tell me about that?"
And I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I'm not claiming that these things are paranormal or anything.
Right.
I'm saying they're the effects of having just one experience. When I was a child, a 12-year-old. So whether it was real or not, it had long-lasting effects.
Right.
And that's what. And so as a parent, and really the only reason I brought that up was because of the parenting issue. Is that am I going to create a situation with my kids? They're going to be having nightmares and wondering what's outside and all this. If a grown man is having these issues,
Right.
So.
Right.
But anyway, well, Lou, it's been 2 hours.
Yeah, buddy.
And I really appreciate it. I hope we can do this again sometime. Maybe next time I'll be more brave. But I really wanted this to be about you because I really appreciate what you're doing because honestly, you're sticking yourself out there too, right, on a daily basis, right?
Indeed. Indeed I am. Indeed I am. Yeah, it's like I said, it's not doing me any favors, but it's not hurting me either. I think at this point, people are starting to become hip to the idea of this being real, and it's because in the last 4 years they've seen, Tom DeLonge, they've seen the New York Times, they've seen Tucker Carlson, they've seen 60 Minutes, they've seen the New Yorker, they've seen Ezra Klein, one of America's favorite authors. They've seen some of the best thinkers in this country openly discuss this and take it seriously. So I think I don't have the fear anymore that I did when I first started the channel, especially, a the years before that, like I never told anybody about my experience or about what happened to me until I started the channel. And it was because of all these things that I saw happening. I was like, okay, it's time. It's time to start talking about this. It's time to start having these discussions. And I think it's fun. It's fun as hell. You know, we pride ourselves on my show, we pride ourselves on taking the topic very, very seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously, and we don't tell people we know anything. I don't have answers to any of this stuff, and if anybody says they have the answers, I would say turn around and walk away, because I don't think they do. I think it is as complex and as strange and as weird and as unfathomable as possible. You know, as humans, I think we only see 1% of what's actually known in our known universe. You know, like we can't see an infrared. Infrared, if I'd shown somebody that 100 years ago, they would have said, like, what, are you a magician? What is this? It's a spectrum of light. It's a spectrum of light that you can't see with your eyeballs. You know, I think this phenomenon is going to be something very similar to that, where it could be right in your face right now, and you just don't know because you don't have the filters to see it. You know, but I like talking about it, man. I think the discussion is well past its time to be discussed. I think you know, we're in the perfect time. We're in the perfect time.
Well, maybe you can come on. Lue's coming on the 22nd. Maybe after that we can get together again. And you know what would be fun is I think is getting somebody like Chris Lato on here with us to. Yeah. Because I really want to. I have a friend that was in the Air Force, and he passed away, but he kept flirting with telling me things, but he wouldn't. Right, because he and we had discussions about this all the time, and now I want to pick Chris's mind again because I don't know. He told me that he hadn't seen anything, but you know, I don't know. I'm curious to see what other experiences he might have had. But anyway, I gotta cut this off because I don't know.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, Lue. I really appreciate it. And
no, man, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
And what's your next show? Is it tomorrow?
We do a show every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Unidentified Celebrity Review.
Yeah, and I put a link to your channel in the description, and I hope people will check it out because there's the Big Phone Home was an awesome event. I got to watch most of it, and it was awesome. A lot of work there.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
I don't think a lot of people understand how much work goes into something like that.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's a lot of work. But you know, I think we set ourselves up perfectly to make the next events a lot less hard. You know, we got a great website up now that really helps people get in contact with their local state government officials, and we've written the emails for you. We've written the templates, whether you want to send a tweet or whether you want to call them or whether you want to print out an email or send them you know, an actual letter in the mail. We've got all of the tools on our website for you to do that and request, you know, more transparency, congressional hearings from public and state officials. So it's not going to hurt, as you can see from the last couple of weeks. This last year, I mean, we've had some really great progress from a government perspective, and yeah, that's the mission, man. You know, at least for us, is to help shift the paradigm.
Well, it's great stuff, and I hope you keep it up. And
yeah. Well, we're not going anywhere. That's for sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Lou. I appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. See you.
All right. Ciao. Bye.